Good afternoon everyone and welcome to today's webinar. It's going to be Mike that's going to be covering the sort of supplier pricing and terms today. We do have Jack who's on the live chat, so if you've got any questions throughout the session, just ask away on live chat and Jack will be able to answer any questions that you do have. Alternatively, we'll be hanging around for a little bit at the end, so if you want to wait around till then, by all means do. So what I'm going to be covering today is how you can check whether your supplier pricing's okay in the system, sort of what terms are, how you can update them, automatically, and a few other different bits. So making sure that your pricing in the system is updated and up to date is a very important part of Prima. If you don't ensure that it's up to date, you could be working off old costs, which could sort of depend on how you use the system, and just in general sort of be sort of quite bad to the impact of your day-to-day. So you could have sort of a lot of your pricing that's wrong. So this is a very important task that needs to be done. So you may hear, just speaking to our support team, sort of on any literature that we've got on the help site, things like that, that we mention terms. So terms are what we call price files. Your suppliers may call them price files, cost price files, but we call them terms. So it's your terms of your supplier, your pricing. So if you ever sort of wonder what terms are, well, it's making sure your supplier's cost price files and pricing are up to date. So the first thing you actually do need to check is whether or not you've got your suppliers set up for EDI, because there are two options for actually to maintain and update your sort of suppliers and to make sure that your pricing's kept up to date, and one of them is actually having them automatically done by the supplier. So we do have an EDI integration with quite a number of suppliers within the system, so a lot of them do update these automatically, and we are always working on integrating with new suppliers to always make sure that you've got sort of a broad aspect of suppliers with EDI integration. And the other option is to actually update them manually. So depending on who your supplier is depending on whether or not that's an option. So finding that information out is actually key, because otherwise you can spend a lot of time sort of doing something manually when you could just do it sort of more efficiently automatically. And to check whether or not you're set up for EDI, the easiest way to check is actually going through the catalog lookup or through the company grid manager and actually just finding some suppliers. So if we wanted to check for your standards that, you know, are we set up for EDI with VAM, so you can come in here, and as if your catalog's got assigned a supplier, you can just hit this details button here, and that'll take you directly through to the company once it loads. Or you can just go through companies and search for it through sort of this option here. This is a quicker way just to find from your catalog list, and to actually see if your supplier is set up for EDI terms. Now we are in a test database here, so I don't know whether it'll be populated, but what we want to look for is this supplier tab here, and basically the information here, this EDI setup, will be populated with something. So there are some details in here at the moment. There will be test details, but it's coming into this section, seeing who the supplier is at the very top, checking the connection type here is set up for the relevant one. So you can see we've got a full list of suppliers that are available with EDI. So from this list, if it's available, then that's who you're going to be selecting, who you can sort of use for EDI terms if it's set up. Some of them, obviously, we do have only some form of integration with, so always check with our support team and check with the supplier themselves if they do EDI sort of terms via the EDI. But as long as this information is populated, the connection type is enabled, then more than likely you will be enabled for electronic terms. Now that's for them types of suppliers, so making sure that that's an option and been enabled is important, because otherwise you can spend a lot of time doing something you don't necessarily need to do. In order to, if you've got your sort of EDI suppliers, some of them may update the cost and things like that on a daily basis, some of them do it on a weekly basis, some on a monthly basis, even some on a quarterly. So it depends on the supplier when they're updated, but in order for you to actually check whether they're updated or not, there's a few different ways that you can do that. One of the most sort of common ways of doing it is actually just going into the catalog. So we can just go into VAL, for example, and we can just search for all the codes. We just want to search for any code at random rather than a specific one, and just see what's happened to it. So we can double click into it, so just go into the catalog and just search for any codes, and what we're actually looking for is checking this information here where it says previous date and previous information. Obviously we're on a test database here. The EDC is not always running. We want to have terms being downloaded. But what you want to check is that sort of this date isn't too far in the past. So for likes of your VAR, your spices, your main suppliers, they should be updated on a weekly basis, some on a daily. So making sure that that date is somewhat near to the current date. And then just below it, it does say terms import, EDC terms import. What we're seeing at the moment is EDC data file import, and that means the last time these pricing was updated was through a catalog import. So for this sort of file here, it was last updated on the 9th of March through a catalog import, which denotes that the terms may not necessarily have been updated in a little while. So it's always at this point, this is where you would either sort of contact your supplier or you'd import it manually, which is sort of the next thing you want to cover. When you come in here, if you see that it says something online, the EDC data file import, that should tell you your cost price potentially and your selling prices aren't correct in there. So that's when you'd have to contact your supplier if they're EDI, and they will be able to load them at a terms file for you electronically. So because we've checked that you've got EDI details set up within the company, it's not been updated. This is this point that we would suggest speaking to Val, speaking to whoever your supplier, for whichever supplier it is that you're checking, and they will be able to hopefully load a terms file electronically for you. They will know it's a cost price file, but they'll be able to do it for you, and that'll be updated sort of in due course automatically without you having to do too much work. Now, if this was a supplier that didn't do EDI trading, if it was someone that didn't do EDI terms, you would have to import the terms manually, and that would still involve contacting them. So what you'd have to do in that situation is contact the supplier, and they and ask them for a hard copy or an Excel spreadsheet of your costs. And what you'd have to do, you'd have to load it into what we know as the terms template. So they'd send you this file across in a spreadsheet, and you would need to populate this template here. So it's nice and easy. You've just got item code, cost price, selling price. Now if you're looking to update just your costs and not your selling, just leave the selling price column blank. Don't put sort of 0 in there, because you can end up just actually zeroing all your selling prices. Just leave them blank. It's perfectly normal. What you would do at that point as well is you'd save this in a CSV. So it's important that it's saved in a CSV, otherwise Prima won't accept it. Once you've saved it in a CSV, you can just import it similar to a catalogue. So you'd want to go to the Prima v6 folder, the imports, and drop it into this section here, as long as on the machine the EDC is running, so otherwise it won't get picked up. So that's how you'd actually import a manual terms file. So you get this template. If you've not got a copy of this template, you can speak to our customer service team, more than happy to send you a copy of this template across. Otherwise it's just them column headings as you can see in the background here. You would then save it as CSV, drop it into the Prima v6 imports folder, and then the system will automatically pick it up as long as the EDC is running on that machine, and it'll be imported into the system. So once it's actually been picked up, it won't automatically assign to a publication. So what you need to do, if I just go back into Prima, it will be imported into this section here. So if I go into publications and terms, wait for this just to load up a second. You can see here we've got a number of different terms files already preloaded into here. So once you've done sort of the file in the format CSV, you've dropped it into the EDC, it's been picked up, it'll be imported into this terms import section here, which can be found under publication and terms, and then it's a case that you would assign it to a catalogue. So that's for your manual files. Now to assign it to a catalogue, it's just a case of looking from the list, finding your catalogue. So if it was the VAL, you'd select the VAL and you'd hit this apply terms to catalogue. But this isn't the only thing that we can do within here. You may have some mailers, you may want to update your selling price on some mailers that you've got in the system. You can do it through a terms import here. So it's just a case of you can select your mailer. If you're looking to update a specific mailer with terms, you can get the same, get your item codes, leave the cost prices blank, and then just update the selling prices in that mailer, making it easier for you to manage your own selling prices rather than having to go through sort of the mailers individually and update it. You can just do it en masse using one of the terms templates. The final option that we do have, this is going to be more used if you do have sort of a supplier in your system that isn't a catalogue. So it's something that you've imported using the product file. You can update the cost and things like that, by coming into this section and assigning it to a supplier. So you may have a supplier that isn't sort of a usual one within the system that you use for some things. And what you can do, you can come in here, you can put your item codes in, you can update your cost price, and then selecting this, you would then be able to apply it to specific suppliers, and that would assign to the suppliers tab against products, which is within this section here. So if just show you, selecting that supplier option will update within here, within the product. If you selected one of these, it would update this section directly. Okay, so that's all I'm going to be going through today. If you do sort of any further questions, we'll be hanging around for a little bit at the end. But if you want any one-to-one training on the whole catalogue import process, updating terms, managing it, then by all means just contact our training department. We're more than happy to put some one-to-one sessions in. But apart from that, I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next week.